Alright, Mother's Day here in Australia. So before the in-laws arrive today, I thought I'd do a quick video update. As you can see, it's progressed. I've fully finished both sides, got the stake pockets all made and welded on, and I've just put some of the bolts in for the rear guard, or fender as they call it in the US. I've changed these as well from stock. A couple of different things. They were very tent-like. They were quite narrow across the top, and narrow I mean as in short, left to right, as you're viewing it here. I've actually added 100mm or 4 inches to the length to make it more like the front. I didn't need quite the same amount of gap towards the rear of the tyre, because this is obviously for steering, but I felt it looked very tight at the rear stock. And I think the reason for this is that originally between the front face of the guard and the back of the cab, the spare tyre used to sit in here, and because I've lengthened the cab 7 inches and therefore shortened the distance, there was no way I was going to put a spare in there, and hence I've got mine under the floor on a winch, so that cable winch that pulls it up and down. So I went ahead and rolled that whole new top for it. It was actually easier than just putting a strip in, because there was so much cracking and damage and all the angles. These naturally sit out more normally than the cab, but because I've made the cab 9 inches wider, everything's actually in line now. So when you look down the side of the vehicle, you can see the cab, the rear guard and the front guard are all the same. Now normally the front axle track on a Willys pickup is 57 inches and the rear is 63 inches. So they made the rear axle quite a lot wider, so you could get the standard 8x4 sheet sitting flat in the back for the tradies, so they could for all their bracing sheets and whatnot. So anyway, I've made that longer and I've wheeled it up in the English wheel. Now, what I've done also is change the angle of it, because I've matched it. Just got a digital angle finder, but I just use it as a large angle to measure the angles. Sorry, words are escaping me. And then change it to suit this as well. So all the front and rear angles are all the same. There wasn't one angle that was the same on before I started this. It had been hit along this front face so many times because it stuck out wider than the cab. Every time we went around a tight corner, Farmer Jack has gone and run into things, and this had like a basketball sized dent in it here, and there was just a myriad of dents all the way up here, and the whole garter being twisted backwards, something chronic. And also an interesting fact I only just discovered yesterday as I was building and was about to mount them, that stock, the rear of these sit up nearly half an inch higher, and you actually got a bit of a slope. Or if you switch left to right, it goes the other way. So I decided to redo the mounting holes and everything, and so it actually now sits parallel with the top of the bed. I think that just looks a lot better. So anyway, and also people think that these things are flat, and as you can see, it's far from it. There's a lot of angle there, and I did that in the English wheel with my lowest crown anvil. And this is another little trick too. I've put a little spacer on one side, so the contact point is actually all the way over to this side, and that lets you, if you're coming up, I was doing this for some repair work on the guard, if you've got something like with a flange like this, you can wheel right up to the flange rather than being at dead center. So I use that sort of rig arrangement for when you're wheeling up near an edge. For the bit that rolled over, I use the soft wheel again to get a continuous roll. Use my highest crown, you might be able to see them in the background there. Yeah, the highest crown anvil down the bottom there. And then use this pipe here, which is the same radius as the front guard, and literally just stood up on here, brace it against my chest, and then just force the back of it over. I think if you had a wider sheet, you wouldn't have to do the start of the roll with the wheel. You could just physically bend it, but I'd already put the folds in, so I did it that way. So the next step here is to, these had a skirt, that's what that cutout is for. They had so I'll make a skirt as well, and I'll decide how far to come down, because I'm not sure if to cover the whole rear tyre, which is quite a, I'm going to build a roll pan around the back, and it's got to sit off just enough so I can get my wires in for my taillights and everything. So either I'll build a very deep roll pan to cover that, to match up with the skirts, and then on the front there'll be, to cover the chassis here, there's another skirt. As you can see that it steps out here, comes down, and I'll have a step. So I think I'll have a step that follows this door seal, this reveal here, and the step will match up across here, level with the bottom of the cab, and be the same height as that. And then I'll bead roll the triple in the top of it, just like the stock one had as well. So I'm actually considering, rather than the separate pieces, one for the skirt, another one for the step, I'm going to look at that today, is to make this all one piece. And that way I don't have the problem of rust forming in the join between the skirt and the step. I'll just make it all in one piece if I can. Time will tell if that's possible or not. But I'm very pleased with the way it's coming out. I've also finished this front panel. So I've also come down here, and then it tucks back under as well, just to finish that off and get a lot more strength, because this will also carry some hinges for when I make a hard cover that will go across the top. And as you can see, you can't really see the fasteners. That you can just make out the button heads sitting on the back there, and then they're just bolted in through with some flange nuts. It's all stainless steel, but I will paint them so they blend in. I've used the same fasteners to hold the guards on as well on the opposite side. So yep, skirts and step next, and also sorting the fuel filler. It's on the opposite side, but I'll probably end up with it just below floor line, about here, as long as that gives me enough fall. I'd rather avoid having the big high tube that was on the back, but that came up to this height here. I'd rather avoid that if I can. They're pretty ugly looking. And I've got, let's see if I can quickly show you. I should prep these things. I've got this flush mounted fuel filler. There we go. So this is the same size as the stock donor fuel filler hose, and it'll probably end up sitting somewhere about there, like that, above the step, and it'll be flush with the panel, just under the floor as much as possible. Tuck on over the chassis rail, and the filler is actually back here under the floor, facing towards the back. So I've got to come around and zigzag like that, because I can't come out the back because the floor sits hard on the frame there, and then you've got all the muffler and everything in the way. All right, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in Australia, and hope you all have a wonderful and enjoyable day, and I'll catch you with the next update.